Here, our boat Charlie, praise the Lord. We are glad to be back on his boat. You must have faith to be on this boat. Okay, this is the faith boat. So he's going to take us on a little bit of a trip. And I want to read a few verses and play one song too. And he may sing for us. I don't know, possibly. Usually he sings for us. So I'm going to take this microphone down here. And we don't want to spend our whole time talking because we want you to be able to be looking out, but you can be looking out as I'm reading this. I just want to share a passage that's very, very precious to Lori and me and give you a brief word of testimony and then play a song that's been a real important song for us that relates to the Sea of Galilee. But here's the scripture. It's Matthew 14:21. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat. And what's interesting there is he's just had the feeding of the 5,000, and it says that Jesus made them get into the boat, which tells me they probably didn't want to. They probably wanted to stay on that beautiful hillside, keep enjoying the miracle that was happening, but Jesus made them get into the boat and cross ahead of him to the other side. And Jesus knew that there would be a storm. He sends the crowds away, and he went up on a mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone, but the boat was already a long distance from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary. So Jesus deliberately sent them into a storm. He knew that that was going to happen. He made them get into the boat so that he could then do the next part of the story. And we read that in verse 25. In the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear, but immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." And Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But seeing the wind, it's pretty good today, we got some good wind, he was afraid. And he cried out, he was beginning to sink, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind stopped, and those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are certainly God's Son." And when they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret, which we've seen the plain of Gennesaret already. Just a quick word of testimony. This is a passage that God really used in our lives when we were invited to leave the ministry that we were involved in Canada and that we loved and still love, and come down to the United States and provide leadership at the Bible Institute there and around the world. And that was a very difficult decision for us. We wrestled with that, not because we don't love all the other BIs, but it was hard to leave a comfort zone. And we've been in ministering for 15 years, and to make a very long story short, God ended up using this Sea of Galilee area and this passage of Scripture to challenge us to be willing to follow Jesus wherever he called us to go, even if it meant climbing out of the safety of a boat, so to speak, that we had been in for a long time. And I was leading the choir at the Bible Institute that year, and as God's providence would have it, I had translated a song into French to teach the choir the song. And it was a song that was part of the song was this story of climbing out of the boat and walking on the water and listening to God's voice. And in that period of time, I came to Israel. Lori was not with me, but I came to Israel, and I was at En-Gev, and I spent 4 days there really wrestling with the Lord in prayer, up early every morning, walking the beach that you guys are walking, and saying, "Lord, is this really, really what you want?" And it was really, I had said to Lori before I left, when I come home, I want to have peace in my heart about what God has for us. And so it was while I was here that God really solidified that in my heart. And I said, "Yes, Lord," because you can't say no, Lord. That's a contradiction. And made the decision that we were going to climb out of the boat that we'd been in. And it was a good boat. Nothing wrong with the boat that we were in. And walk on the water, so to speak, and go to Jesus. And the song that God used has been very special to both of us, and many of you probably know it. We want to play it for you. It's called "Voice of Truth," and a song that Casting Crowns made quite popular, and it goes very well with this setting, talking about listening to God's voice in the midst of many other voices calling out to you, and being willing to get out of whatever boat you know you need to climb out of, even if it means stepping on the waves, even if it means it's windy and it seems like it's a dangerous thing, if Jesus is calling, you say yes. And here we are 6 years later, and I had no clue that every year after that decision was made, we would be bringing students back here to the Sea of Galilee and sharing a brief testimony like this with you guys. And our little world of ministry in Quebec has been blown worldwide, and now we get to just see wonderful men and women of God like you all over the world that are moving forward for Jesus. So I want to play this song, Voice of Truth. And do you want to say something before or after that, Steve? And just enjoy it while it's playing. Let the words minister to you. It talks about Peter's experience, but it talks about also David and Goliath's experience. And we will be there in 3 days where David met Goliath. So it will also fit with this song. Did you want to say something? Oh, okay. So I'm going to go plug this in and play it for y'all.